Well, let's get straight into it with my next guest. Joining me now is trial lawyer Robert Barnes. Robert, thank you so much again for joining us on the U.S. Report. The GOP House Oversight Committee this week released more documents which showed Hunter Biden's business entity made payments to Joe Biden. Let's hear a bit of this from Committee Chairman James Morrow.
The House Oversight Committee is releasing subpoenaed bank records that show Hunter Biden's business entity, Owasco PC, made direct monthly payments to Joe Biden. This wasn't a payment from Hunter Biden's personal account, but an account for his corporation that received payments from China and other shady corners of the world.
I mean, Robert, if there was any more smoke coming from this gun, the fire detector in this room would be going off. Take us through the latest.
What we're seeing is that Joe Biden, ever since he became senator, weaponized access to his office and used his family, his brother, his sisters, and then ultimately his son, as the intermediary, as the collectors of that amount of money. I mean, nobody thinks anybody was buying Hunter Biden's brilliant legal insights when the Chinese government, the Ukrainian government, Russian oligarchs, and all the rest were buying access. And now we're seeing that the money trail does end up in the pockets of Joe Biden directly. We knew that there was indirect evidence from, the way he was able to purchase his home for straight cash and on the Delaware beach, other aspects, texts and emails where Hunter references 10% for the big guy and other shares for the big guy. But now the Congress has been able to literally trace and track the money like a criminal money laundering case right back to the bank account of Joe Biden from the original source contribution of these foreign governments paying off Hunter Biden for access to Uncle Joe.
Well, and you just said something there really interesting I want to pick up on here. You talked about buying that house for cash. One of the things that I've found really fascinating about the Bidens through this whole investigation and affair has been the way there seems to be an awful lot of money floating around the Biden family for the Joe and Jill who did not come from money, who were public servants their whole lives, and somehow have all of this cash to not only buy houses and cars, but also keep putting Hunter through rehabs, pay his child support, and lots of other things like that. Normally, wouldn't investigators look at these sorts of things and say, hang on, this person has got more money than they should have. They've got more stuff than they should have.
Absolutely. It's your classic illegal source income case. So the way the IRS, caught Capone was looking at his spending and saying, could his spending be explained by legal sources of income? And here you look at the spending on behalf of Joe Biden, the houses, the vacations, a wide range of personal amenities, and say, can this be explained by a senator's salary? People just on a Washington, D.C. salary, as nice as that can be compared to the ordinary American, still doesn't buy you beach homes in Delaware and straight cash. That's your classic indicator of drug dealer behavior, mafia behavior, criminal behavior, because it's your classic indicia of illegal source income that they use to entrap and get people all the time. And here we're just seeing classic examples of not only illegal source income, but old school money laundering. Of just laundering donations that are really meant for access to Joe, but through the business accounts of them. And there are so many of them. I mean, it's extraordinary. Basically, they set up a shell operation to disguise the fact that they were laundering illegal bribes to Joe Biden through his own family and the various entities they created for it.
And Robert, this week, too, we had the Oversight Committee, that House Oversight Committee, announcing that Hunter Biden has to appear for his deposition next week on December 13. What is the legal process here? Does he have any choice? Do they have the power to compel him? And we had seen this standoff going on between Hunter saying, we'll only do it if it's in public. How is this all going to play out?
I think ultimately he's going to have to sit for the private deposition without being able to grandstand and avoid and evade it in the way he wants to. Now, he can assert a Fifth Amendment objections that anything he says can be used against him in the proceedings, given that his plea deal got blown up, so he can't. He still has available to him the Fifth Amendment, but that would, of course, would be damaging to his father's cause. So he can't completely avoid it. I mean, that's what Steve Bannon tried to do, and that didn't go well for him ultimately. You can make arguments that you have privileged information, but you have to assert those at the deposition. You can't just avoid the deposition entirely.
And if, things come out in that deposition that are incriminating before that House committee, then does that give prosecutors ammunition that they can use against him to lay further charges? Or where does that go? Because this legal system seems a bit opaque for us here in Australia. What impact does it have if he says something that really does wind up either perjuring himself or getting him into trouble or revealing something about the Biden family business?
I think most counsel would advise him to take the Fifth Amendment, but I think for political reasons, he's not likely to do so. And thus, he runs the risk that if he lies or says something that's a provable lie, he can be subject to perjury prosecution. Like, for example, a lot of the alleged crimes he's committed over the years are outside the statute of limitations. Can't prosecute him on a whole bunch of those things anymore, including the tax crimes. But if he could reopen the door to that, if he lies about something, because then all of a sudden it becomes perjury, you can argue it's conspiracy to commit ongoing tax fraud, then you can bring all those charges right back up. So he faces substantial criminal exposure if he's in any way dishonest. And then there are those that believe he and his sister have been trying to cry out for help by, leaving laptops behind, by leaving diaries behind. Maybe he'll do that. Maybe he'll use that as the opportunity to come clean and expose and get rid of the guilt of having to be his dad's bag man for so many years.
Well, I think, Robert, that whole family dynamic in there between Hunter and Joe and his stepmother Jill is absolutely fascinating. And I think you're right. I think that a lot of that dynamic is driving what we're seeing. But we're going to have to leave that there and talk to you about this more in the new year. Thank you so much, Robert Barnes.